address, please?
To John Palmer, 4935 Winter Park Road. This regards to Oak Wine and Spirits on Main Street, 308 East Main Street. I've talked to many of board members, and I've had many conversations with Zeke. We're struggling here to get our place open. We've done everything that we were supposed to do. I've been told by your administrator that we weren't doing things that we were supposed to do. So I'm gonna go through a couple things. August 30th, I signed with an architect. His name was Wes Churchill. October 1st, we submitted the plans to the Safe Built, got them back. And they withheld the plans, they weren't sufficient for them. November 11th, that same architect resigned. November 26th, I hired Eric Halber from Abacus Architects. January 6th, we resubmitted this plans to Safe Built. January 9th, we got them withheld again. So I'm coming here to the board to see, our building is 100% up to ADA codes. It's ready to open. We're just trying to work through a few details. What I'm asking the board to do is give us a 180-day temporary occupancy while we work through the last few details we have to get our place open. So I'm hoping the board can address that situation, let us get open, and then we'll have 180 days to fix a few things that the plan reviewer wants us to address. I went on the state website. It definitely says a municipality, fire, or building code official can allow a building to get 180-day temporary occupancy. I don't know. That's all where I'm at right now. I'm just asking the board for their help so we can get the doors open, get our everything loaded up in the barn and ready to open.
Just a point of clarification on this. You said, where's the plans at?
We just got them back on Thursday last week.
From
The Safe Built
Built
will withhold them also again.
agency.
Yeah.
So,
And
did
I don't
they
know
give you a
what
list of stuff to do, or what?
It didn't really give us a list this time. My architects are working on it, like I said. You know, the building's, and matter of fact, I had your fire department in there 2 weeks ago. They walked through the building, spent 30 minutes there telling me how beautiful, how everything looks perfect. If I was telling them we're open tomorrow, they would let us open tomorrow. That's what your fire inspector told me. So, you know, that's all I'm asking for. Give me 180 days to let me get open here, and then we can work through the final details.
So I'll go from the top areas and chime in. One, this isn't an action item in front of the board tonight. This is public comment. Two, this falls under police powers, which would be subject to review and approval by your building inspector. You have a contractor, that's Safe Built. And if Safe Built is not granting an occupancy permit to the Palmers at this time, either there's an administrative mistake that needs to be addressed because Safe Built is acting inappropriately as your police powers entity under building inspection and state code and fire code, or it is indeed a factual thing. I did receive a phone call from Mr. Palmer and Mrs. Palmer's architect today. That's Eric Harvey. You all know Eric. He's got a long-standing relationship with the village. And Eric asked me a couple of questions. First question was, would the village object to a posting of occupancy? And my response to Eric was, Eric, from a zoning standpoint, I certainly don't pose any objection to that. However, my questions would be, how is compliance going to be maintained? Meaning, are we going to send out fire officials to do periodic inspections of the facility the same as or differently than we would other businesses? And two, how do the Palmers feel about the provisions under Chapter 125 such that if there is a violation, this body can be, at that point, as a quasi-judicial entity, would be forced under state statute to revoke an alcohol license for a minimum of 30 days on a sworn statement by one of our fire officials. In other words, it's not a good position necessarily for the village or the Palmers to be in, but I can appreciate the plight of the Palmers. On a second violation, that alcohol permit under Chapter 125 has to be revoked in permanency. There's not a third chance under the code. So, you know, those are things to consider. Could we allow that? Certainly, if violations take place, what would occur? Those are the things that would occur to the alcohol license under Chapter 125. could the Palmers go back and seek TTB licensing at the federal level and potentially reinvent themselves as either a distillery or a winery? Of course, and then that would get them out of alcohol licensing at the local level. And it would be a federal and state thing following any kind of a violation that would take place. That's something for further on down the road. Secondary to the conversation, the issue still appears to be fire separation between the upper unit and the lower unit. Right now, that would either necessitate a sprinkling of the lower unit. Bob, I know you've done some looking around on the site and kind of run into, hey, maybe here's some suggestions to help you along with what you're running into. Or what Eric had proposed originally and discussed with just Don Houston and I as a happenstance, hey, I'm submitting these plans, here's my solution to this, meaning that's what Eric had more or less stated, was to evict the tenant as a residential occupant of the second floor, remove the flooring, place down 2-hour fire rating on that secondary unit, then replace the flooring. That sounds pretty creative to me. I'm not a building code official, but sure. Eric has now found out today he's got some challenges with that approach from Safe Built, which I think is what John was referencing when he's saying there was a kickback in the plans on January the 9th. I made a suggestion to Eric as an effort of goodwill, which is, hey, what would happen if you just treated it as a continuity of the business premise, and would that allow you to obviate the state code under IBC for fire separation? And Eric talked about it with his partner real quick, and he said, we actually think that's a really good idea, and we're gonna resubmit based on that. So it sounds like, much like Waterford Stillhouse has a fire separation with flammable materials kept in the basement of the first floor up to a certain limit of flammability within that premises, that Palmer's may be able to resubmit, get a permit from Safe Built in accordance with state code just by making that change. So I think this is working its way through a code approval process and review. So I recommend you guys continue. Todd?
First, I've heard of it, but number one, it's not an action item for you. Number two, I certainly don't wanna see you override your building inspector at this point with what you have, unless there's more going on that I don't know about. It sounds like there was a resubmittal. I would let that play out and let staff kind of fast track this with the building inspector.
There's been no fast tracking of this project. Like I said, this started October 1st. Now it's January, middle of January. Like I said, I don't know why we can't direct somebody to say, hey, give them 180-day occupancy. I met with a sprinkler company today. We got a lot of challenges with that. I said, let's just put sprinklers in. A lot of challenges with that. We can't go into Main Street, because there's 25, was it a 25-year moratorium, Bob? So we'd be coming off of 2nd Street, and I mean, we're talking $60,000 to $100,000 for a sprinkler system. That doesn't make sense, guys. I'm a small business. I'm a mom and pop shop. I'm not a Starbucks, and I just need to get open. That's why I'm asking for a 180-day temporary occupancy. You guys run this town. Tell the village inspector to give us. Never even asked them for it, but I wanted to come to you guys and see what your thoughts were to move forward on something like that.
Am I correct that, first of all, you don't have a building permit?
I have a demo permit. I'm
You've got
glad you brought
you've
that
got
up, 'cause I've been
electrical
accused of
and-
not doing
You got
what I'm
electrical and
supposed to
plumbing
do.
permit.
Here's per state website.
Electrical and plumbing permit.
Just let me read you this off of the,
I'm just asking a question, because that's what
yeah,
our building
I have
inspector told me. You have electrical and you have a plumbing permit, but
And
you
a
don't have a
demo
building
permit.
permit or an
Correct.
occupancy permit or
Correct.
state-approved plans.
What if I'm in a hurry to begin construction, right off the website? It is possible for you to speed the plan review or start construction before full plan approval. Right on the state website, right there. In either case, if the owner is at risk, I'll have to correct the problems at my own cost.
I think that's
Right in
the
website.
challenge, John, is right now you're running into conflict between what the state code says that you have to do and what you would like to do, either from a timeline of construction or a cost of construction standpoint. I believe earlier in your statement, you said that it would cost you somewhere around $60,000 to install sprinklers. That falls under that risk of owner provision. So ultimately, when you start construction on something, it presumes that the risk falls on the owner, or by agreement, the owner's general contractor, if he's receiving advice from a general contractor as such.
No, I'm not saying it's anybody's responsibility but ours. I totally understand that.
Yep.
But it's saying right here, I can start construction.
Absolutely.
And I got the plumbing and electrical permits that I
Yep.
was required. So I got the permits that I needed, except the major plan review one, which they're gonna say, yeah, everything you can do, we're ready to go here.
So John, I'll ask you some questions, just so that everybody, kind of understands. You and I had some conversation about the tin ceiling that is located in the first floor of that building.
Correct, the 107-year-old tin ceiling.
Yep, so things that you said to me were, I really don't wanna put in sprinklers, that was out of cost and out of a desire to preserve the
Yep,
ceiling, okay?
absolutely.
And, pulling down the ceiling to put up I don't recall the dimension, but it's so many inches of drywall as a fire break, right? So, okay, there's a cost to do those things, that also falls under that provision of state statute that says, hey, it's at risk. In other words, when you proceeded, the state statute presumes that you were doing so, understanding fully what those risks are.
Correct.
So to come in and ask the village board to obviate its own powers, delegated and assigned to safe build through police powers, moves the risk from you and your customers back to the village board, which is what I think Attorney Terry was talking about when he went, hey, I don't want you to step on your building inspector's toes.
Well, I'm not asking for a permit to move in, I'm asking for a temporary permit while we work through the process here. And if we have to put sprinklers in,
So-
I spent $400,000 in the building, to spend $100,000 or $80,000 for sprinklers. Does that even make sense? I mean, it really doesn't make sense.
I'm gonna ask Todd some questions I think I know the answers to, but I want the board to at least understand what really murky waters we would be getting into to even contemplate such an action. Todd, if the board were so inclined to overrun its building inspector's independent judgment, what sort of liability would that place upon the village and its liability policies if something were to happen at the premises, including just a stub toe or a slip and fall?
You're eating it, frankly. You've taken Martin or the safe built out of the process here and the insulation it provides. And this is the first I've heard it, but if I'm hearing, you're looking for a temporary occupancy.
It's a temporary occupancy while we work through the fire code part of it.
The only time I've dealt with temporary occupancy is, Bob can speak to this, you're talking in the final throes,
Minor
final
fit and finish.
inspection. If I'm understanding correctly, we don't have approved plans or even a permit at this point, right?
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah, incredibly rare, that's overstating it, to issue temporary occupancy, when we don't even have a permit in place or approved plans. Certainly sympathetic to it, I get it, hearing it, but
I'll ask you another question.
you're eating a lot of liability.
So, follow-up question, if the board were so inclined to accept such a liability, and Mr. Palmer were granted a 180-day temporary occupancy, he opened up his business, and then on his own, he decided, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just gonna leave it exactly as it is. What steps would it take, and how long would it take for us to actually bring Mr. Palmer into compliance following issuance of said permit and an alcohol license?
Cool. Another 6 months in court, potentially.
It says right here in the state codes, maybe you wanna read that, it says
Appreciate it.
they could, at any time, and order immediate discontinuation of the use or complete evacuation of the building or space
He
immediately.
said you would then have a right to fight us in court about that, which
You
could
guys
be
approved
dragged
the
out.
liquor license, so if you take my liquor license, what you just
And
said.
you would have the ability to
process.
sue us on that, right? There's nothing we can do that's gonna be.
You've been a real help during this whole thing,
I'm
Zeke.
sorry, John.
Yeah, it's not, you don't have to be sorry.
Question, if we, the way I understand it, since I've been on the board, if we go contrary to what the professionals tell us to do, we can be held liable personally by not listening to advice.
Yes. It opens that door, absolutely.
Is there something that we can do? Obviously, John and Rebecca have a substantial investment in a awesome business that's going to be on Main Street in our community. Is there anything as a board that we can do to help out as far as, let's say, fast track the liquor license so we can start getting accounts with liquor companies, so we can start ordering inventory, and to help them in that process? I think that could potentially be helpful. Because right now, without a liquor license, he cannot get any accounts from any vendor. Obviously, the investment that he's made, we know he's not going anywhere. They're local residents. And I think that if we had the ability to do that, to issue his liquor license, so we could start that process while Safe Build goes ahead and approves his plans. So once that's done, he's in a much faster and better position to get open.
Just shoot, I think the best you could do there is issue a contingent upon the occupancy permit being granted.
They've issued him
We
an
did.
entitlement.
Okay.
But so what you guys did at that last action on this item, that in effect is that. So let's talk about what happens if he actually has an alcohol license and what's required. You're required to specify on the license the premise and where it's going to be served. So anything beyond that is now a conditional alcohol license, and we're landing ourselves kind of in the same legal gray area, which is, okay, well, now he has the legal ability to sell, but he doesn't have an occupancy permit for the structure. How would we deal with that? What would happen if, Mr. and Mrs. Palmer decided, hey, we're going to open up and sell outdoors, but we're just gonna keep the general public out? So it creates this different legal environment for you all to contend with, for us to have to deal with. So there's nothing stopping Troy right now with the entitlement that this board's already granted him from doing all of that paperwork, setting all that up, getting those orders ready. That could all be done from where I'm sitting right now based on the action that's already been taken.
And
He's got an
I have one
entitlement.
more question
I
for you.
did mention that we would have a special board to expedite as we've done for businesses. If, once you get your occupancy permit, we would be happy to have a special board meeting to get you open. But that's. And I talked to most of the trustees and they said, sure. Okay.
I mean, everything we've submitted on the plans is, Eric, when I talked to Eric, said it's fine. All the ADA, I mean, we're more ADA capable than any other business on this main street, let me tell you. So what if we had him come in and inspect and say,
John,
everything is,
First of all, this board, maybe with exception of Bob, I'm no expert in building code, and you, none of us,
that's what I'm asking, if I brought,
that's
if I
not our,
brought head safe, they'll
that's,
come in
that's
and
not
review
our,
the plans we have.
that's not our job, is building code. That's why we have a building inspector and state plans.
That's also why there's a process, John. If you ask Safe Build to come in and do that, you'd be asking them to expose themselves to the same liability. It's just not fair to them. Everybody here wants to help you out, wants to move things through, but ultimately this comes down to the at-risk proposition under state statute. So I think you've either gotta work through Eric and get things submitted and approved so that you have a full permit with the state-approved set of plans. Bob, you got any advice?
I think that if it comes down to like finish items and not life safety, then we'd issue temporary occupancy, no problem. Happens all the time.
And Martin has routinely done that over the counter without any action.
So have I, hundreds of times. If you wanna step a week or two or three ahead of an occupancy issuance, you get a temporary. But life safety in regards to building separation, that's something that we can't do. I mean, let alone we wouldn't, but we just can't because the occupancy permit number gets attached to everything, the health code, the liquor license, everything has that number. From here forward, once you get your occupancy permit, it'll have a number on it, and that number correlates with everything you do in the future, including your liquor license. So that's gotta be, that bridge has to be crossed first before, I mean, from a village zoning standpoint, I'd be fine issuing it tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that gives you occupancy to occupy the building. That second stage in that permit comes from building inspection, comes from Safe Build. And that occupancy.
They have not
permit-
been much help, Bob.
I'm sorry?
They have not been much help.
I
I said,
understand.
my architect, Eric, on the 19th of December, emailed them a question.
I remember you told me.
It was the 3rd of January. I had to call down there and they finally got back that day. When we're waiting 2.5 weeks for one question that she told us to just email your question, I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
Over 2 weeks, that's unacceptable. You guys contracted them. I mean, you guys are, I mean,
I don't
it's
disagree.
unacceptable.
Communications are slow right now, I get it. I know that I'm waiting on a permit that I've been waiting on from the state to review for over 8 weeks.
That's a review, I understand that. I understand that's time consuming. But when they have a Zoom meeting with her and then she tells them, well, email my, your questions, I'll get it right back to you. 2 weeks later, still nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost, crazy, that's the people you guys contract with. And supposedly I pissed them off somehow by calling them after 2.5 weeks of not hearing anything back. So that's a rumor I heard that I pissed them off by questioning, going, hey, it's been 2.5 weeks, you told us to email a question, you don't get back to us. I mean, I need to move forward here. I have kids, we're a small business, we can't sit here for months, deal with this, I mean, it's just ridiculous what we're having to go through. Other businesses, church offices turn into coffee shops overnight, and, they don't have to do anything. Other business, mercantiles, they have higher fire ratings than an assembly, and they just open right up. They don't go through what I go through. It's like,
John, everyone goes through what
no,
you
they
go
don't.
through. They do.
Everybody follows the same rules.
Everybody follows the exact same rules.
Show me some state approved plans for a couple of those businesses that just opened in the last 6 months.
They're not a change to an assembly occupancy, John.
To change of occupancy.
All right, John, we're gonna move on.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for all your help.